CNBC Africa caught up with Rob Davies, South Africa's Minister of Trade and Industry, for his view on the African agenda at Davos.
The African continent remains the next growth frontier, that the continent now needs to make more than ever with the oil price drop. We need to make the shift from being mere producers and exporters of primary products. We need to move towards moving up the value chain, industrializing. Regional integration is an enormous part of that. The infrastructure deficit is an enormous part of that. And within all of that agenda, which I think is the structural dimensions, South Africa is a key and pivotal player. Yes, we may have some problems in our case at the moment in the generation of electricity, which is having a dampening impact on domestic growth. But nonetheless, we have programs in place to address that. And the domestic infrastructure program remains on track, and we continue to provide a very open and welcoming destination to industrial investments. That's my message, and I think that many of the business people I've been meeting have, in one way and another, are envisaging plans to increase their presence in South Africa.
Now, you've been at these Davos meetings for many years, and in prior years there seemed to be great excitement around Africa being the next investment frontier. I'm hearing voices saying this time around the focus might have just shifted and Africa has fallen off the high priority agenda. What's your experience been?
Well, I don't think so. I think that one of the main issues for us is to meet the business people who are here. And we still have business people that want to meet us. So I think in addition to what goes on in the sessions, there's also the bilateral one-to-one meetings that we have. I spend quite a lot of my time on that. What I do think is interesting is that the theme for this year's conference, which is the context within which growth has to take place, that a number of the issues that have been looked at the global level are precisely the challenges that are confronting us. Inequality, jobless growth, not so much a threat to us, but it's part of the global context, the possibility of deflation in a number of countries, and then some of the challenges of leadership, rise of nationalism, populism, and stuff of that sort. So I think that many of our challenges that we see in South Africa, we need to understand there's a global dimension to them. And that the other thing I think that is noteworthy here is that there's a discussion paper here from the World Economic Forum about inclusive growth, which is not just talking about growth rates per se, but it's actually talking about the content and quality of that growth. And that, I think, is one of the dimensions that we need to focus a lot more on because, for example, China is making structural changes. It's not measuring its performance in double-digit growth any longer. Still very respectable levels of growth, which I think we could only wish we could attain, of 7.4%. But the focus is on moving up the value chain in China, and in that case is actually moving towards becoming a much more knowledge and service-orientated economy. In our case, we've got to actually industrialize and reindustrialize our country.
Of course, this all ties back to the National Development Plan, which I no doubt has been a key topic as you continue to engage with business leaders. What are the indicators that you're pointing out to the business community to prove to them that we've moved past a vision document and we are really and truly in implementation phase?
Well, I think that very often when I discuss with business people, particularly foreign business people, and one of the advantages of coming here is we're talking outside of the South African branch and talking to the leadership of the companies concerned, is they're talking very, very practical issues of implementation. They want to see improved infrastructure, and in often cases they do. They want to know what the incentive programs are, and then very often they've got quite good stories about their interaction with our department. So I think that's the kind of conversation. So it's moved beyond just discussion of policy documents. It's actually now moving into very, very practical issues. And that's the kind of conversation that I've been having with business people.
That was Rob Davies, the Minister of Trade and Industry, talking to us from